Hi all, welcome to the next edition of Amnic Cast. And today we have Avinash Kumar Gupta, head of DevOps at Razorpay. And I'm sure everyone knows Razorpay, and everyone in the engineering also know their blog. And they have been doing a lot of innovative stuff in terms of platform engineering, cost optimization. So it'll be great to actually interact with Avinash to pick his brain on like how did they come up with some of these innovations and what are some of the cost optimization they do. But before we do, I just want to add a small disclaimer to this. Again, our panelists will be sharing their personal opinions, knowledge, and expertise in their respective field. These views are their own and they do not represent the official positions or policies or endorsements of the companies they work for. So all the discussion is intended to reflect their individual experience. With that, welcome Avinash.
Thank you. Thank you, Sathya. Happy to be here.
So it'll be great to introduce yourself and give a journey about like how you started and your journey from where you started off to where you are today.
Sure, sure. As you know, I'm currently with Razorpay, as I'm heading the DevOps function here. Before Razorpay, I was working for a company called Adobe Systems. You might know about it. You must have heard about Photoshop and Illustrator and PDF and Acrobat. That's the company I'm talking about. I spent quite a big amount of my career there. I spent, I think, 21 years there. Before that, I was working for another company called Newgen Software, which was again one of the earliest product companies in India. Um, I did my MTech from IIT Delhi. I did my BTech from a government engineering college in Rajasthan. I basically come from Rajasthan. So that's a very brief history of my journey. I can go in detail about what we did at Adobe. It was one of the very wonderful companies in the world. I still love Adobe a lot, and I love Razorpay a lot. Razorpay is another wonderful company that I've been fortunate to be part of it.
Awesome. Do you want to touch upon your journey in terms of how did you move into DevOps and
Sure.
what made you interest into that, and how did you move into cloud journey from again being Adobe? Everyone would have touched Adobe's Photoshop and Illustrators and all. Being from a desktop, like what? How did you move into the cloud space, and how did you start this whole journey?
Sure. So I started my journey as a developer at Newgen, right? And within a couple of years, I started working with customers, and uh, I started like when the product knowledge was really good. Companies started using me to send to customers for features, post sales, business conversations, technical conversations, everywhere. But then I was feeling that I started missing the touch with technology, and in the beginning of the career, you want to be in close touch with technology. So then I joined Adobe, and I joined Adobe in the QA environment. We called it quality engineering. I started with my journey with handheld devices. Well, this is something that few would know. Maybe you would know that in those days we used to have pocket PCs and farm devices, and then
Yeah,
there were Symbian devices, right, which were like
yeah,
tools plus smart devices from those times. At that time, smartphones hadn't come, right, hadn't made their journey yet. So started with that, testing Acrobat Reader there. The fortunate part was that every couple of years I was doing something new at Adobe. So it was like working for a new company within Adobe. So
right.
started with that, then started working in enterprise products, started managing teams. I went into managerial line. Then we set up something called System Testing Lab, which was a horizontal thing that we started doing for a large suite of products. So I set up that lab. And there we were doing things like cluster testing, performance testing, some of those things which were horizontal in nature and cross-cutting across different products. That was, I would say, was kind of base for my DevOps journey when we were doing all of that. I did the release engineering in the middle. I managed a release engineering team. I did again do the development. We developed an installer for this large suite of products, a common installer. And then since I was kind of becoming that person who could be given anything and would manage it well, my leadership decided to give me this thing called a team which would handle the production systems for a popular product. And that's where my journey started in the DevOps. Now, what we call as DevOps. Earlier, it didn't have that name. So when I had my first person, and I set up that team in India, in fact, in Adobe, that I was thinking about what designation to give. So I gave him a designation of system engineer and some specialist, right? System engineer and SaaS specialist. And I was looking for something that what would be the right position or right title. And I stumbled upon Google's SRE, that site reliability engineering. And that's where we started calling ourselves a site reliability engineering team. And globally, then we started calling this function as site reliability engineering. So that's where we started. It was Adobe Connect, which is a web conferencing product. So we started our journey. I started that journey here in this particular field with that. It was a full stack product. We were managing like three geographies. And slowly and gradually, all the other Adobe products, we started getting that in India and started managing. So we would provide that, round the clock support as well as provide a lot of innovation from here. So I grew that team. In Adobe, we still call it SRE, but in general industry, it's called DevOps. DevOps term, I think it came somewhere around 2015-16. And I still say that DevOps, SRE, all these are terms. Actual function is basically you are supporting your business, you're supporting your products which are online, right, in a way, SaaS services. So yeah, that's where my journey started. Then turn off some events, COVID came. After COVID, something happened, right? I had to make some decisions. And at that time, I started looking out and Razorpay happened. And Razorpay is, of course, one of the best companies in India in the fintech space. It's the best, of course. It's I think, the top running top company, number one company. And with the scale of Razorpay, the DevOps is so much enriching. I have learned such a lot here at Razorpay. So that's my journey. In brief.
Awesome, awesome. I think you have been in like scaling up Adobe, some of the cloud stuff as well as a Razorpay. Uh, how do you think about the platform engineering itself, right? Like you talked about, like Razorpay does like huge amount of financial transactions, right? And it's a fintech, right? How do you what goes behind scaling all these systems, right?
So, of course, there's a lot that goes behind scaling these systems. There's a battery of teams, right? A battery of people who ensure that things are running fine. But primarily, it's the culture, I would say, right? That culture of ensuring that we do not fail our customers, we do not fail our merchants. Right? For Razorpay, it's merchants, right? It's a kind of B2B business. So for Razorpay,
Yeah.
it's merchants. So we do not fail our merchants. That is the primary motto, and that is the culture that drives everything. Now, behind that, it's like, how do we get the best in the least, right? Uh, you can, of course, with the COVID and with Indian growth story around economy, Razorpay was bound to grow like anything, right? It had explosive growth. And in those times of explosive growth, at times you miss out on certain aspects and you just focus on growing. Here at Razorpay, we believe in doing best for the least, right? So doing the most in with the least resources or with the least cost, right? So while not impacting merchant experience, doing the most, doing the best with the least cost is what our motto is, and of course that has to be driven by relentless automation. So that's what I would say. Platform engineering, we can cover a lot of aspects. What different things go on. We are cutting edge. We are using cutting edge technology everywhere. It's purely Kubernetes based the platform stack, which is in itself is wonderful technology. Uh, I've learned a lot after coming here. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but I can go in depth anywhere if wherever you want me to.
Awesome. I think you touched upon the Kubernetes, and I have also read through quite a few blogs on that one, right? I think moving from monolith to microservices blog, and then like how did you cut down your cost on? It'll be great to actually go deep into like while you're also scaling, there is also a culture of innovation in terms of running it efficiently through cost optimization, right? Using some of the cutting edge stuff that the cloud provides to be able to do, right? It'll be good to actually hear from you what goes behind the scenes, what are your thought process, and how do you do some of these things.
Sure. Okay, so once again, I'll touch upon the culture. So when I joined Razorpay, we have a bunch of talented individuals, very, very talented individuals. Any engineer you pick up and they can go to real depth of Kubernetes for any technology. They talk in terms of the kernel, right? They go at the kernel level and start talking about that. So, so when I joined, the things that I wanted to have in my team was that we are automation first uh, people, right? So I started focusing more and more on automation, and I started giving them freedom to experiment, right? Uh, as much freedom you want, right? Let's fail fast. Let's not be afraid of failure. So that helped, and that's where, and then of course, cost optimization was the part of the overall, I think, industry. Every company is starting to do cost optimization because uh, you can be competitive only when your costs are in control. And if you see, there
Yeah.
are so many startups which are just coming up in the area of cost optimization. We have seen so many of them. So that's where we started, and automation was one of the keys. So scale was important, growth was important. We had to ensure that the merchant experience doesn't go down. But at the same time, how do we come out with start improving the costs? And we have like I think over the last 1.5 2 years, if I say, I think we have reduced it to about 40 to 50%, somewhere around 45% we have already reduced.
Wow.
Uh, and that, so as you touched upon blogs, so engineering.razorpay.com, you can go and read about so many blogs that have come out from DevOps team there at Razorpay, and quite a few of them about cost optimization journey. So we have touched upon in so many different areas. So what we did, if I may go in little bit depth there, what we did, we started looking at first where the cost is going. The cost visibility aspect is so much important, right? If you start attacking the problem without actually looking at where the cost is going, that becomes a difficult and haphazard journey. So, of course, AWS provides a console, and we had our account managers who were helping us. But then we started looking for some other tools, either building our own or going for some third-party tool, which could give us much better visibility into cost, that where the cost is going across different services, so many different factors. And after exploring few tools, we zeroed in on one, and that has been helping us a lot. So that was kind of the first step, and then we started attacking each area. That okay, let's look at S3 cost. Let's look at cloud thread cost. Let's look at data transfer cost. Let's look at compute cost, right? And it started going in depth of that. That okay, where are these costs going? Where are we spending more? And how can we reduce it? And then team, as I was saying, right, innovation was the key. Everybody was like automation and innovation was the under current in the team. They just kept on coming up with new and new ideas, and doing more and more innovation in that field. And I'll talk about a couple of innovations if we have time. Uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was the basically idea about cost optimization, and while not compromising on scale, we have continuously grown. The scale is growing, right? Our number of transactions are growing, our merchant base is growing, everything is growing. But yet we are reducing the cost.
Nice, nice. And one of the other thing is like while you're scaling, and the other thing is lot of companies who we work with, right? They don't want to touch and make changes, right? Because reliability is very, very important, right? You want to save like few $1,000s, but then if something goes wrong, you might end up actually losing the stuff, right? How do you balance all these things? On one hand, you are scaling. On the other hand, you are optimizing, but also you have to be reliable, right? If you can actually go deep and then say like, hey, this is how we do, that'll be like really good.
Sure. So I'll talk about a couple of them, and this is a very good point that you touch upon. Uh, for us also, reliability is supreme, right? Nothing can come in the way of availability. Even if
Yeah.
it's cost, we cannot compromise on availability and reliability at the expense of cost. Whenever that there's such a dichotomy that comes, there's these two ways up here, we always prefer and prioritize availability and reliability, right, over cost. But then, as I was saying, that team has been continuing to surprise and continuing to innovate. A couple of areas where I'll talk about that how we increase reliability and yet cut on the cost.
Yeah.
So we are big on spot. We are
Mhm.
way bigger on spot usage as compared to generally industry trend. Our spot usage in compute is perhaps the highest or second highest in the country. When we have checked with AWS, they have told us that our spot usages, so we are touching, I think, somewhere between 60 to 70% of our compute is spot, and we are going to grow higher. But with the spot, there comes a availability issue, right? A spot is not guaranteed. Availability is not guaranteed. So while we want to use a spot to save on cost because the spot is usually cheaper than on demand, but then we don't want to lose on our availability. So how do you handle spot interruptions? So team came up and you can find that in one of the blogs. We have written blogs. We want to share that knowledge with the industry. So how do you handle the spot interruptions? So team developed algorithm and again an automated solution wherein if a spot interruption happens, immediately that workload falls back to on demand. So there's an on-demand fallback available for every spot interruption. So that doesn't impact our availability, that doesn't impact our customer experience. But then if you look at it, that's the solution we came up with. We were continuing to run with that. But then we wanted to do cost optimization. And once an instance went to a on-demand, that started running on demand and started incurring the cost of on demand, right?
Yeah.
So then if we don't manage it, then slowly, whichever spot gets interrupted will move to on demand and
Correct.
slowly our
Yeah.
cost will start going high. So then team
Correct.
came up with another innovative idea that spot interruption goes to on demand, but as soon as the spot availability is back, it moves back to spot. So there's a recent blog that we have come up with, and you can check again engineering.razorpay.com, uh, wherein now we have a method wherein we come back from on demand to spot or in automated fashion. There's no manual intervention required as soon as the spot availability is back. So that was like one of major innovation that we did recently, and one of our couple of our talented engineers have worked on that. The other one I would say data transfer. A data transfer is again one of the beasts, which is like a devil lurking around the corner. You never get to see
Yeah.
it unless you go and dive deep. Right? So unless you have that cost visibility, you will not perhaps realize how much you are spending on data transfer,
Agreed.
especially just within the availability zones.
Yeah.
So let's say we are in Mumbai, there are three availability zones. For high availability, we have applications in three availability zones, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And then of course, they are interacting internally to each other. They are talking to each other, these services, these microservices, and we are spending money on that. So then again, the team came up with this innovative thing that, we limit our services, whichever are talking, we limit them to one availability zone. But as soon as something happens, then it goes to other availability zone. So we have minimal capacity available in other availability zones, and then things fall to that particular availability zone. And then as soon as the things are back stable in the first one, they move back. So that kind
Oh my.
of controlled our data transfer cost. And there are so many different initiatives and innovations that we have done, and we are continuing to share that with the industry in form of blog. There's
Nice.
Graviton, there's Sasri, there's so many of them. I can go and on and on.
Nice. And any of these things that you're planning to open source, I also know like you are doing a lot of open source stuff, right? Like, are some of these things planned to be open source? Like,
Oh, you touch upon a very good point. Actually, I am after my team to start open sourcing some of these things. So one of another very interesting innovation that we did, and this is purely related to Kubernetes. So in Kubernetes, what happens is there's a concept of CPU request and memory request.
yeah.
You can request. for when you are running a pod, you can request CPU. You want 200 millicores and you want two cores, right? Or 800 millicores. And similarly, you want 1 gig or 2 gigs, right? That kind of thing you can request. But what happens is that generally developers are super conservative. When they develop their microservices, they say, okay, I need 500 millicores, while their service might only be using 50 millicores. So what happens is that Kubernetes on the nodes, it reserves that capacity. So while
Yeah.
when developer wrote 500 millicores, those got reserved, right? While actual usage is 50. So basically, you are wasting 450 millicores there. So then we started thinking about this problem. We were like big on cost optimization. That how do we be looked at? That usage was low. We were like running hundreds of nodes while the usage was, in certain cases was very low. So then again, team came up with this thought, idea about something called orchestrator, and there were a couple of modules in that. So there, what we do is we look at the CPU request, we look at the usage, then we do our calculations. All these parameters are configurable. That okay, how much buffer do we need? So above usage, we say let's take 20% buffer. So if 50 millicore is the usage, let's take 70 millicore as the with buffer. And then we look at like last 2 weeks of patterns and we look at P99 or P95 numbers. And then on top of that, we add that buffer. And then we say that, okay, this is the number that we should keep. And then we write mutating webhooks, which go and change that particular CPE request on runtime. So that is a very, very beautiful solution. And it has helped us, optimize the workloads and really reduce some of the compute needs and memory needs. That is the solution we are planning to open source. And I have
Nice.
seen some of the companies which are running on this concept, which are coming up with this particular product and selling in the market. Sorry to them if we open source and it kind of impacts their business. But yes, this is something that we have developed and we are eager to share that with the industry. Very soon you will
Oh,
see this getting open source.
nice. Very, very nice. Good. So moving into the next topic, right? Like building some of these fintech also requires you to be compliant and all those things. How do you plan that? With all these innovations going on, you also need to make sure everything is compliant, right? If you can touch upon
Oh
that.
yeah. Compliance and security, these are two things which are very, very big for any fintech. And compliance, you must have seen the story of Paytm Payments Bank, right? How RBI came so hard on
Yeah.
them. So compliance is big. We go through so many audits regularly, right? Our central regulatory bodies put so many compliance rules which we have to always comply with. So, of course, we have a dedicated team division which looks into security and compliance. And then we have to ensure that whatever we are doing, we are doing them according to those compliance rules, those regulators. So, for example, simple examples would be, and this is something that we have seen at Razorpay, which we remediated some time back. When I joined, new employees keep on joining, you know, the company. And then people keep leaving the company as well. What happens is when somebody joins, you create an account, right, on AWS, on so many internal systems. But when you leave, sometimes those systems are not automated and your account is still there,
Mm.
right? So some users or some employees who left, their accounts were still there. And this came up as a red flag in internal audit. And this is, I'm talking about some like a year and a half back. So then we did our, hardening, and then we put the SSO implementation and all of these to take care of that compliance thing. So, in nutshell, what I would say is that compliance is top of the mind. Security and compliance is number one priority. I think availability comes even after that. Right? It's perhaps even higher than availability, right? Because we cannot we cannot compromise on our merchants data, right? And that is the crux of it. So security and compliance is very high. Everything we do, every innovation that we do, is done keeping that particular lens in mind, keeping that particular filter in mind.
Nice. So I think we are almost coming to the end of this podcast. Any top three things that you want to leave the viewers with? Like, what are the top of the things that if someone wants to do some of these platform engineering and do, how do you build this culture so that they can adopt some of these things that you have done?
Yeah, as I said earlier, culture is supreme. Right? So team should feel, every engineer in the company should feel that freedom to experiment, freedom to fail. Right? We have done like what you see out on the public is the success stories, right? All
Yeah.
those areas where we found success, but there's so many of them where we failed, right?
Mm.
We did umpteen numbers of POC, proof of concepts. We failed at them. Some of them we succeeded, and that they made difference. So that freedom to fail and that continuous culture of innovation is very important. Then a couple of other things that I tell my team is, always be on cutting edge. So AI ops is big now, right? AI is entering into every field. So recently, internally, we have developed a solution using artificial intelligence, using the large language models, right, LLMs, wherein this solution is called internally we call it Friday. Uh, so this solution has the capability of figuring out the root cause of failure. Let's say some pod is in crash pattern or some pod is failing. A developer can go click the button and it will come out with a very user-friendly language of what the issue could be. And then there's a chatbot that we are developing. So the second part I would say is always be on cutting edge. So relentless automation, innovation, always be on cutting edge. And then, you know, I think this combine these tools basically keep reducing your toil. Whatever can be done by a machine should be done by a machine, not by a human. Because human is capable of doing much
Yeah.
more intelligent stuff. Just delegate everything mundane, everything, routine to machines. That's what I believe in. That's what our team believes in. That's what guides us.
Awesome, Avinash. What insightful stuff. Keep doing all these innovative stuff and keep writing blogs. Look forward for your open source solution. Thanks for being on this podcast.
Thank you, Satya. This is my first podcast, and thank you for giving that opportunity. It's wonderful talking to you. I hope whatever we have talked about help people out in the industry. And of course, I'll again put in that engineering.razorpay.com. Please go visit our blogs. Feel free to reach out to us either through this platform or directly to us. I'm available on LinkedIn. So just feel free to ping me anytime or any of our team members. They are all there on the LinkedIn platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.